when in those days most of the fishing was done in drifters. And I remember there was about 14 boys in our class and about 12 girls. And I left away seeing it with my dad because he required a cook at the age of 14 and a half. The headmaster was doing like a ton of bricks, getting us back to school, because when I left all the rest of the boys left as well, because the herring fishing was about to start. We were all to go back and finish off for summer term. And then of course I took us into our 15-year-old and all gladly left the school. Education, I mean, is in those days when you're 15 was not the most important thing in your life. It was getting away to sea. I suppose in my life we started off in the remembrance after Dad came home from the war, a 40-foot boat he bought out of Fisher R to go to sea net. And we worked in Aberdeen Bay, we worked in the Clyde, didn't work too much out of Portsoy where we belonged because the harbour was tidal. Worked out of Fraserburgh here. I suppose if you say what have you changes have I seen, when we first came to Fraserburgh there was about 50 or 60 ripper boats with 2 and 3 of our crew that used to catch codlins and mackerel. They even had their own market in the afternoons every day of the week. 3 o'clock was the time, fresh fish coming ashore, and that was a major fishing industry, inshore fishing industry. I suppose the change after that came when most of the boats at that time went twice a year to the herring, down to Lowestoft and Yarmouth, and of course the summer fishing out of Fraserburgh and Peterhead. Whitefish, which I pursued all my life, just was more or less an in-between fishing. But I suppose for most of my life it gradually took over and became predominant. And of course when they closed the North Sea for pelagic species, for herring, then we saw that drifter really disappeared and the purse snitter was invented, and of course he's taken over completely in that line. Whitefish wise, I suppose you could say there must have been a few hundred men in that little ripper boaties with the mackerel and codlins. And then I suppose you could say the sea net boats started because of technology with the recometers and fish finders, seeing the spots in the hard ground, the cod that the ripper boats used to fish on. It used to be a bit of a battle because you used to look for these boats catching cod in their lines and shoot your gear round about them. And it was a wee bit of conflict in those days. And I suppose the seed net, as I say, ringing with 3 coils of warp, just dropping your net down at the back of these spots or lumps of codlins and trying to catch them in a oneer, maybe every half hour. Sometimes you never got nothing, sometimes you got a good haul, depends where your net had gone to the tide. That was the beginning of the demise of that inshore ripper fleet. From that I think the seed net grew. I suppose the main seed net grounds of fame between Fraserburgh and Lossy was the Scar, which is just off Rosarty. I've seen 10-12 boats there, all shooting their seed net gear, their 5 coils of warp together, all converging like a star in the middle and queuing up to shoot. And that was most famous, I suppose, about the Christmas, New Year time. That's why most fishermen never had a Christmas at home, because just like the birds in the air and the crops in the land, fish appeared at the Scaw or Lemon Soles in Christmas week, and they were there for about a month. Good fisheries. You could always count in the old Larry Crawfords and some of the old faithfuls, the Shannons and that kind of boats. Victoria, the old Victoria, the Zulu. You could count on them coming in with 10-20 boxes of lemon soles for their half day for the afternoon sales. In those days it wasn't a case of 2 crews going all out, it was a case of going out in the morning, take your 2-3 hauls, come in for the afternoon sale. It was a better way of living. However, that's all gone. You didn't get any lemon soles in the Scar now, nor did you get codlin. And it's more an offshore fishery. that was mostly seed net. Then along came the trawler, and he more or less wiped out the inshore seed net boat. There used to be a whole fleet. There used to be a 3-mile limit, and boats under 40 feet, say in Aberdeen Bay, could fish within the 3-mile limit. So these boats were more or less all based Cullen, Whitehills, Macduff. There was 30 or 40 boats in all these ports at one time, making a good living, coming in for afternoon sales, just working a half day and getting out each day, fresh fish for the market. It was a good way of life. That's all gone as well. The trawler more or less defeated that when he came along and put down his trawl doors and towed over the hard ground. People say we've got to stop, we've got too far ahead. I suppose that's right, but after the trawler knocked out the seiner for the inshore ground, then along came the pair trawler, and he superseded the ordinary trawler. So evolution never really stops, and while people sometimes think that fishing is fish and they look at the water and they just see the sea, a fisherman who has to make his living from it doesn't see it that way at all. He's got a very intricate knowledge of the sea bottom, the stocks, the seasons, and it's just a professional game the same as any other. That situation, I can remember a way back, it just brought it to memory, that the way that we used to make money during the war when we were just 12, 13 and 14 was to go to the braes beside Persoy and climb the Bow Rock, Fatty's Rock, and these kind of rocks for birds' eggs, which we used to sell to the baker because he could never get enough eggs. Them that's old enough will remember the composite egg mixture, which was yellow, used to mix up with water. Even I can remember it because I used to use it when I first went cooking a boat. But you was rationed to 1 egg a week, and the ammonia out of a seabird's egg, which was larger than a hen's, the bakers thought was great. So we always had a ready market. What happened was the brave lad used to climb a rock, and the lad that wasn't prepared to climb and take a risk, he used to stay down below with his jersey held out to catch the eggs, because some of that rocks was too difficult to climb down with the eggs, but you could always throw them down into his jersey, always making sure that one landed on him if he wasn't careful. It was good fun, but that's where we got our pocket money those days. I suppose that's all I can say about birds, but it's maybe a bit different. Well, I suppose one of the few fishermen who only bought seed net gear, because that's really all we concentrated on. A seed net, I suppose, is a bit like a hoover, but what you do is you put away a Dan buoy. In a modern seed net boat, you put away a Dan buoy, and in an egg shape you go round and shoot about 1.25 miles or 1.5 miles of probably 30 to 40 centimetre warp. Drop your net in the surface, which then sinks to the bottom. Continue in the egg shape round about as you come back and pick up your Dan buoy and slowly go ahead, probably at about 1 to 1.5 knots through the water or through the tide. By this time your warps in your net have sunk to the bottom, and you start heaving on a 2-barreled winch and pulling the ropes in slowly. The action of that ropes on the bottom is supposed to put up a cloud of sand or mud, depending on where you're fishing, and it's a wee bit like herding sheep, I suppose, by a sheepdog. Fish gonna swim very long and very fast or very far, and you kind of herd them into the middle, and as you sort of close your warps, you're heaving in, you're doing a sort of a herding movement, the fish tire and go back into the net, and that happens every 2 hours if you're in a seed net boat. It's winter time you get 5 hauls a day, in the summer time you can get 10 hauls a day, and you usually work for daylight to dark depending on the weather. So I suppose that's a seed net basically. When I first started, I can remember when you get good hauls, it took 4 of you, 2 at each wing of the net to haul on board. And I've seen us in bad weather every time she took a lump of water. He was almost hauled over the side, especially if there was a good lot of fish in the net. But it used to be cotton nets then, and quite small. Now nets are very, very big and expensive. And no, the fish hasn't got the same chance as they had before. If you, now when you do it, you haul them, you can work in worse weather. We've more or less, most of our boats have got shelter decks, are totally enclosed. We've got hoosies, we've got rope reels, which we used to have to haul the ropes away from the winch. We used to sit in the open rail in a boat and gut, and when she took a lump of water, he was often soaked. Well, he was not often soaked, he was always soaked. I've seen us sitting in the open rail all night in the winter time, sitting gutting, and it was a miserable existence at times. But I don't know, the water, you forget one thing about a fisherman. I don't think you would ever go back to sea if you remember the bad bits. You only remember the good bits, the good hauls, the bit of excitement of a good haul of fish. Sea netting, when you tow, when your fish goes into the net and you heave it up, and you have a lot of fish in the cod end, or a good haul of fish, because they come from the bottom, which is probably 60 fathoms or whatever it may be, the air expands as they come up, and the cod end shoots out of the water and spreads on the surface. Then you get a big excitement. The birds all dive down to feed, and you haul like billy-o, because quite a lot of them get out of the mouth of the net, and especially if they're a big cod or something, they usually seem to manage to either escape before you get the mouth of the bag aboard, or either just lose it, or you see it happening and you're frantic to keep it aboard. Trawling, on the other hand, tows for longer and the fish are more dead when they come aboard. Sea net fish comes aboard alive and kicking, just newly fresh from the water, because they're only been in the net probably the maximum amount is an hour. Trawl fish has probably been in the net for 3-4 hours in most cases. Pair seining, pair trawling, which is the mode of fishing which most boats do nowadays, is just a big net hauled between 2 boats, possibly up to a mile apart, and possibly a mile behind 2 boats going along in a straight line, or they can turn, but they're just cleaning up the fish that goes into the net. Of course, nowadays we've got about 400 or 500 suspended oil wells, suspended wellheads in the bottom, which makes a bonny mess of the net and gives you problems. We've all oil rigs in the North Sea and oil pipes. North Sea is very, very cluttered this side of the Norwegian line, or the medium North Sea line. I don't think you can go anywhere from north of Shetland to right down at the border without being within a proximity of 5 and 10 miles coming across a rig or buoys or something. I mean, it's like a main road with lights you go up this side of the Norwegian sector. It seems to be quite prolific for gas and oil. They even think they stick their pipes away at angles to get somebody else's oil. In fact, they go quite deep at it, according to what I'm told. So I suppose there's all sorts of things in the fishing industry. We've now got, where we used to have 1,000 boats going for herring, we've now got about, well, I've always maintained that what we should be looking for is the maximum employment of people and the maximum amount of boats, provided it can be done viably and kept profitable. We should be looking towards saving our communities, which are certainly under threat at the moment with the poor quayside prices that we're having for fish. People say it's our imports. Well, imports have a lot to do with our problems. The processor says, well, we cannot give him the fish that he wants, but he can get his fish from all over the world now. Russia is a main. We get a lot of cod and sprag and big haddocks in for that kind of places. And I suppose they desperately need the money for that. And that's fair enough up to that point, but our prices never seem to get off the ground at all now. Our prices is I suppose 40% down for our more main North Sea species than they were 3 years ago. So I think we're going to get through a good patch. I think we've got 1 or 2 boat yards to build boats. Problem as I see it now is we've got no scrap and build policy. We've got no proper decommissioning scheme. We've a tuppenny difference to the catching power that the government has signed up for. I mean, this government has signed up to reduce the demersal fleet, which is the people that I suppose I represent and am part of, by 19% by the end of 1996. We cannot possibly see how it's going to be done without first a decent decommissioning scheme. But even then, what's facing us in 2002 when it becomes so-called European waters? The Spanish is building up their fleets, all their yards is busy building, and we're helping to pay for it because Britain's a major payer into the EEC pond. Most of the other countries is building. We're the only country we know building. We're the country, because we're over our target for tonnage, that can't get any money out of the EEC to help with it. And our own government can't get any money out of the Treasury, our own fisheries departments. So we're left with about 1 boat yard in Scotland, and possibly, I think there's probably 1 boat being built at the moment. So how that's going to equate when the average age of the Scottish fleet is 27 years old and the average age of the English fleet is about 37 years old. When we come to 2002, when we're supposed to be out there competing in an open sea, we were partners in Europe, when the government, as far as I see, doesn't give a tuppenny toss what happens to us. I mean, we hear Sir Hector Munro, who is the Scottish Fisheries Minister, in the Press and Journal as of last week, saying to the Scottish farmer, don't complain. You earn 220 million, we give you 280 odd million and set aside in subsidies. He's in the paper this week and saying it's going to increase to over 300 million this year. And the fishing industry gets 25 million for a decommissioning scheme without any building, without any structures, without anything. In fact, I think of the 500 million, I think it's 500 million for the EEC for restructuring and whatnot. I think Britain gets 2%. So I think that basically sums up what this government thinks of the fishing industry, because we haven't got a lot of Tory fishing MPs. Don't know if we make any difference we had on that, because we've only got about 7,000 fishermen in Scotland and halfway the political clout. We get to speak to them, and they'll listen to us, but we didn't seem to get very much results. So I don't know which way you would put it. I think we're getting a raw deal, there's no question about that, compared with the farmer. And I think farming and fishing is a backbone of the rural communities of Scotland. And one seems to be getting, I know the farmers at bad times, but I think we're coming to a very bad stage. In fact, if I'm going to recall, it was this week last year that the trouble happened in Peterhead with that Russian boat putting oil in his fish. And we were down seeing the fishery civil servants on Friday, and we put it to them there that there's an incident waiting to happen this year. I can see if we get we've had very bad weather since this year started, but I can see that if the weather improves and there's reasonable fishing, someone somewhere is going to kick the traces, because you just can't see your own prime fish was being drawn and cod imported into your own port under your nose. You know, no point elaborating on it. I mean, if you're fishing, you've got to pay your crew something. It's no fine if you're at sea a week or 10 days, you come in, you don't get your fish sold. You've got your running expenses, you've got your weekly expenses, and of course your crew is only paid by the profit of the voyage. And if you can't give them a wage after a certain amount of time, it's very difficult to expect them to sail with you again the next trip. And I don't know, I think something's got to be done. I'm not against imports, provided imports don't come in under the price, under the EEC minimum prices. I think fair's fair, and we deserve a fair shake. I don't think we're getting that at the moment, neither from the Tory government, and even, I can't blame the buyers really for doing it, because it's their side of the coin, but we've got to fight our own corner. And I'm quite sure we'll do our best to do that. But I do think there's an incident waiting to happen in the future unless fish prices to us improve. They're speaking about the fish price in the supermarket, because I don't think they've come down that much. Or if you go to even a local fish shop here, it's $2.20 for a fish supper. I think we're getting about 3pence or 4pence for a haddock. And well, need I say more? So somebody's making a living. I'm not saying over the years we haven't made a good living. I'm speaking about the situation we find ourselves in now. Fishing is a dangerous job. I think we've lost probably 4, 5, 6 boats this winter already, sunk through one way or another, mostly through weather. And we're very thankful we haven't lost any men. But it's not the easiest of jobs. And if you can't pay your crew one week, your pressure's on you to go a bit harder the next week. And an incident is waiting to happen. Somewhere, somehow. I don't know where it'll be, but something will happen. I don't think there's an awful lot we can do, because we're in this GATT agreement where zero tariffs and zero, no. Up until this last year, they had a reference price, which meant that fish coming from Norway and countries outside the EC paid an additional tariff, 5%, 10%, 15% above what our minimum price in the market we was allowed to sell it by the EC. No minimum price works out about £2 or a stone, say for haddock. But we've got the problem that fish fingers and stuff like that, where it used to be, or cod, battered cod and stuff like that, was fine, but a lot of the major people now are using Alaska pollock and Chilean hake. And okay, it's a world commodity, and if they get them cheaper there, everybody's in the business of making money. But we've got to fight our corner base where we can, and we think that all that fish coming from outside the EC should have a regulated price, which doesn't destroy the present Scottish, I suppose. I can only speak for Scottish fleet, because at the end of the day, if you take the north coast, the northeast and the west coast, it's really little communities that supply crews and boats, supply their cars, their groceries. It keeps them going. And once that's gone, I think it will be like the pelagic industry. Once it goes down the tubes, where 1,000 boats, 45 can do the work of 1,000 boats, before we're in the situation that I suppose you could do it with a quarter of the boats if you make them bigger, more powerful, more efficient, use less men. But it does nothing for communities. And I wouldn't like to see that. Well, I suppose even in my boat, you're speaking about your running expense for a week is £2,000 to £3,000. But over the year, if you take the gear and everything, you're speaking at an average boat of a minimum of £100,000 a year just to run that boat being spent locally. the minimum. And every boat goes out the door, if you're going to count in 100,000, for gear, oil, painting, you name it, repairs. That's a fair bit of money not circulating, and I think it'll be sad. In fact, honestly, in the port of Fraserburgh here, I think we've about 130, 135 fishing boats, and I don't think this town would be the same without the fishing industry, because farmers now can appear to work with one or two people. Even the type of boat that I'm speaking about, we always used to have 8 of a crew. Now they're down to 6 and 5 for sheer economics. They just can't afford to pay that bigger crews. And of course that all increases the risks as regards people and watts. They've got to go in the same kind of weather. Okay, they're more mechanised, more hydraulics, there's more help for them to do the work, but you can only come down so far, and then it becomes dangerous. I've got a horse now.